The Arts of Sustainable Futures. We have incredible speakers today. The webinar is organized by the Global and International Engagement Unit here. I'm Farida Pawan, professor in Learning Design and Adult Education, and I lead the office as well. The format of this webinar is that we will start with 30 minutes of conversation between the speakers. And then at 30 minutes, we'll open it up for questions and answers. In the background, Ross, can you start the recording, please?
Done.
Thank you. So we also are joined here by incredible speakers who will be introduced shortly by Professor Weltsek. And we also have Ross Wilkerson in the background, making sure that everything works. And so thank you, Ross, for being here one more time. And so without further ado, Professor Weltsek and our guests, Professor Perry and Mr. Reagan, thank you for joining us. Gus, I will take it away.
Rita, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gus Weltsek. I use he, I, they pronouns. I am speaking to you from the traditional lands of the Maimiyaki, the Lenape, the Barbowamek, and the Sowawana. And I just want to uplift them and hopefully respect the space in which I'm allowed to occupy at this moment. I want to thank you, Farida, so much for holding this space for us and inviting us to this space. I'm going to come back round to me. I'll be at the end, but I'd like to introduce my good friend, Reagan Kandole, who is actually going to be joining us here at IU in the fall as a graduate student. And then my very dear friend and colleague, Mia Perry, mentor, guide, and artist, bear none, scholar. I'm just really letting you walk on water here. So I'm going to stop and let you take over introducing yourself. But we're really grateful that you've allowed us to come in here. We have some questions that we're going to be working through. How do people understand the arts within their lives? How do people understand the arts within their research, teaching, community activism? In what ways might you imagine the arts being a part of your work? And what challenges do you see incorporating the arts? So thank you very much. And Mia.
Thank you, Gus. Thank you, Farida. Hi, everybody. So my name is Mia Perry. I co-direct the Sustainable Futures Global Network, and I'm a professor of education at the University of Glasgow as well. And I also have 3 or 4 other hats, but those are the 2 that probably are most relevant today. And what I thought that I might do with my 10 minutes is introduce the Sustainable Futures Network, partly because I think it maybe will help frame what Regan will present to us, but also because it's a collective of people, it's a space and a project and a set of practices that has essentially formed, I suppose, a really expansive understanding that I now have today of social arts and the potential roles and practices of arts and cultural production in very different contexts. Working in the Sustainable Futures Network has illustrated the huge challenges and the obstacles of bringing arts and cultural practice to the table of inquiry, to the spaces of education, to the spaces of development and policy. And I think recognizing that that is an obstacle that we share across the world has come hand in hand with recognizing the power, the power and the different powers in different places of cultural practices. I was brought up in Europe and North America with a certain understanding and appreciation of the arts. And I think what I recognize from my own training and experience in the arts is how critical the arts can be for social cohesion. But over the past 10, 15 years working in very, very different contexts, I've recognized the role of the arts and cultural practice for really building partnerships and bridging differences. And it has become quite a critical part of my day-to-day practice, both in leading the network, in designing methodologies to work together, but also in my own individual research. So very briefly, the SFG, we call it the SFG, the Sustainable Futures Global, it has been around for about 10 years. Regan and I have known each other for that long. Gus and I have known each other for much longer. And we began as a collective of people who had a common set of challenges, a common set of contentions around the divides between research and communities of practice, around the challenges that we face as researchers and scholars and teachers in working in collaboration with communities, but also with policymakers and policy influencers. So we came from various parts of the world knowing that our sustainability issues were very different. If our Nigerian members have very different problems than our members in Bangladesh. However, we shared these common, essentially methodological problems, and they boil down to partnerships. We didn't collectively know how to work together very well. And that means across disciplines as well as across sectors. So the network has been forged over the past 10 years on experimenting with ways of working together, of being together, of coming to shared understandings, even though we may not have a shared mother tongue, we might not have a shared disciplinary knowledge. Our work is really, really focused on how we build genuine, trusting partnerships. And as many of you can already imagine, arts practice, play, cultural production in that space has been absolutely central. So I'm just going to play you a 1-minute video of something that's very recent. Every 2 years, we endeavor to meet as a collective in person, which is quite a feat because the network spans 3 continents, about 12 countries, and active hubs of practice all over those contexts. But we have found pre and post COVID that there's something really kind of fundamental and essential about building and holding and nurturing our community of trust and our family by managing these in-person settings. So 2 years ago, we had a symposium and we have a few videos, and this is one day of that symposium we're going to show you a little excerpt of that really gives you a taste of the role of arts in our day-to-day practice as a collective of interdisciplinary, cross-sector, international collaborators. And I'm going to ask for the support of Ross to help me share that video. Thank you, Ross.
We are gathering as a Sustainable Futures Global Network, and this is a community, right? A community of practitioners, a community of people of different interests, a community of people of different knowledges and experiences, all right? And within that, we share knowledge and values. I think that's what's important about a community. It's about the relationships that we build, and so the network builds relationships amongst itself and amongst its members. But beyond that, our work engages communities of work. We went today, for example, to a community in Dedza. And what does that mean? We are looking at a community. A community means there's a sense of value. There's relationships that go with it. There's relationships amongst the people that are there. But in our work, we value the relationships that we even build as a network together with those communities of engagement. And so as we reflect upon our work, we reflect also about the relationships that we build with the communities that we work with, the values that we share together, and the purposes that we serve together. So for us, a sense of community is really important amongst ourselves, but also with the people that we engage.
So that's just a glimpse. And I don't assume to know where everyone comes from today, but I do know that from spending plenty of time in academic and research places in the UK and North America, that often we tend to get into our disciplinary practice and become sort of sheltered in a bubble of our own internal logics. And one thing that the SFG does for all of us, and I think possibly Regan, you'll agree, is it continually exposes us to how our practice, our day-to-day practice, is in relation to very, very different contexts in a relatively small world, Mother Earth. And so I just thought it might be probably more memorable than hearing me speak about disciplinary expertise for you to just see a glimpse of what happens when we come together in different parts of the world. And typically the things that really create the partnership, the relationship, the memory is around cultural production. In Malawi, dance is a really big part of that. In other contexts, it will be storytelling. In other contexts, it will be drama or making or craft. But I think that's probably more memorable than my slides. However, in case this is useful, just as a bit of an umbrella for Regan to build on, I'll quickly share a couple of possibly more familiar slides for you. full screen. Here we go. Just letting my computer catch up with me. So again, for those of you who might be coming at this from outside our arts network, familiar with social arts practice, we look at arts as a place where we produce our information through those encounters, and we don't simply go in and find it and take it out. And that's a huge sort of fundamental difference between a lot of research practices and approaches to inquiry. We can make visible experiences that don't fit easily into standard frameworks. And again, it's another reason why I played you that video. It's much easier for you to feel that than for me to explain how community might look or work or feel differently in other places. We challenge assumptions around teaching quality or rigor. We challenge the idea that there are universal concepts that exist across contexts, but actually that the sort of frameworks of practice shift across from place to place, from context to context. And we show how shared categories can flatten complexity and obscure meaning, but moving into local context, moving into partnership can really enrich and complicate, if you like, the realities that we're looking to inquire or engage with. In very basic terms, we use art as a way to explore. Sometimes it's not always about teaching, it's not always about answering a question. Often we use art to understand a situation. And this is an example, not from my own, but from an amazing organization called the PVI Collective, an Australian company that play through cities and have audience members engage with the space differently by giving them instructions to engage differently, playfully through a common day-to-day space. We use arts as a mediator. So sometimes, again, it's just let's make something together so that we can break down familiar pathways of protocol and Professor Perry and telling me what you think I want to know. And we often use arts to mediate the partnership, to get where we're going, because it allows for playful methods, it allows for imaginary, it allows for relationship. And of course, most commonly, if we're looking at interdisciplinary places, arts is a way of representing. So we resist bringing artists or the arts practice in at the end of the project, but it is very, very powerful as a representer of an understanding, of a finding, of a claim. And I'll just speak to one example of the three, which is the one in the middle. This was a piece of art that came out of a project around young people's relationship with the digital world. And this was the end of a workshop where a young boy was representing his relationship with his phone, with his smartphone. And he created a globe. And it was because in so many simple words, his phone was his whole world. And so, a lot can be said with some visual tools and playful production of what might be deeply held socio-cultural realities for young people in Scotland at the time. And so my last slide, and again, you might all be familiar with Maxine Green, that this motivates me and her work motivates me quite a lot. To call for imaginative capacity is to work for the ability to look at things as if they could be otherwise. And I think across the network, whether we're working in a rural community in Malawi, as you saw in the video, or in Uganda, or in Bangladesh, or in Puerto Rico, we often almost out of urgency reach to creative practices because we're in wicked problems, we're in stuck places. And the arts is a hopeful, inspiring place where we can actually think otherwise, imagine futures that haven't already been fixed in pre-existing designs or structures. So I think that inspires all of us. And I think it's only right that on the back of that, I turn to one of our leading and founding member practicing artists, Reagan. Over to you, Reagan.
Thank you, Mia, for the nice presentation. I'm Reagan Kandole. I'm from Uganda. I'm an eco artist, youth development worker. I'm also currently teaching at Kyambogo University. I teach art and design, research, and community projects. So yeah, like Mia said, we've known each other for a long time, and we've done a number of projects together with Sustainable Global Features. And I personally, I've learned a lot through this network, through collaborations, working with different like-minded people it has really improved the way I'm seeing the arts in a very different context than before. So I lead an organization called Eco Action. We work with the most marginalized urban youth and women, come up with innovative use of waste and different create income opportunities. So some of the things we do as an artist and as an art educator is really to get communities together and pair them with university students and try to really break down research to a more layman's understanding. For example, what does it mean to someone in the slum when you're talking about climate change or you're talking about environmental pollution, poor waste management? So as an artist, I've learned this along the way, like there is no better way to engage the communities than breaking the concepts into visual perspectives. So the ability of us using visual or making art installations and public performances and on streets on different parts of the city have really helped us to extend this art activism, like using art to really address issues about environment and sustainability. So we've done a number of projects, like one of the famous projects that we are known to do is the elephant in the room. So it's an idea that really cuts across, like when we talk about the elephant in the room, we try to address issues that people don't feel comfortable with, yet we live with them. And these issues can be in global north or global south. It can be political, it can be environmental. So the idea of the elephant in the room project is we decided to really see that every year we are creating an installation that is addressing a certain elephant in the room, depending on different communities and their need. But also it has helped us to create discussion to encourage people to start thinking in their own elephant in the room context. Like, for example, when we get to Indiana, what is it that is the elephant in the room? Then how do you address that in a more visual kind of perspective? So I've really found using arts is one way that you can easily communicate to each other and also connect and have a lot in common. So I'll talk more about how me as an artist who is based in the education, working with communities and also working with the students, how I found this very interesting in a way, like we normally engage students in communities to go find out projects that they can work with the community. But what we normally do is really get on ground and try to address these issues together with the community members and try to engage art practices. Let's say, for example, if it's the first time we are meeting, the first activity can be an ice-breaking session, whereby you all get together, you have fun, and you get to know each other. Then through that process, the community develops trust in working with the students to break down their research projects. Then secondly, we get the communities down to design or to design what they envision the project could be or what they see. You could give an example, like what is that future you envision? And everyone sketches down ideas, and then as artists, we come together and put these ideas to life. I'll ask Ross to share some pictures. Maybe I can talk more about that. But we've gone ahead, like for example, with Mia's guidance through sustainable global features, we've gone ahead to document these activities into a more shareable kind of context. Like one of the projects we did together was creating a waste training manual. So the waste training manual was more to address the issue of waste management, or the 3 R's: recycle, reuse, reduce. So this booklet was shared in schools to really help schools to achieve the zero waste. It's actually Gus.
I think Gus will
Okay.
share for you, Regan. Gus, are you ready to share?
Okay.
Yes. Okay, are you seeing pictures there?
Not yet.
Oops. Sorry. Give me a moment. Yeah, you have your selection?
Yes,
Where's
we've
the
got the
elephant?
selection.
Just
Yep.
Reagan, what would you like me to put up?
yeah, any picture is fine. Yeah. So for example, the picture Gus is just sharing, this was one of the elephant in the room project that we worked on last year. And here we are trying to address like motorbike accidents here in Uganda. They were very common because people were not really using helmets to protect themselves along the road. So one of the biggest challenge was to really make sure that we create awareness and people get to see how safe it is to use the border helmets. But also this was quite interesting. It was a moving installation that would go to different public spaces. Later it was bought by the city council to really encourage the awareness campaign on road safety and so on. So this was one of the biggest installation we did last year, which was addressing the major elephant in the room, which was road accidents in Uganda. Next, Gus. So yeah, they're like each year we've really been working on different installations. Now, like the second picture is sharing is yeah. So this space was one of the landfill in Kampala, Uganda, where a lot of waste was being disposed in that community, and they used to live a village or marginalized group of people who are plastic collectors. So these plastic collectors were being seen as the most marginalized people. No one would want to associate with them. So what I did as an artist, I went there with a group of other artists. We talked to the community, and what was exciting them was to see their portraits on the wall. Then all these ideas were developed by the community members. So in the long run, we had a 1 week interaction and documenting all the activities, and the community was part of the whole process. So after putting the mural, every day you'd find like 20 people standing and looking down at the landfill, looking at the mural. But logically, my thinking was, as people are looking at the beauty on the mural, there is no way they can avoid to look at the trash that is in that community. So in the long-term goal was like to encourage people to get this place cleaned up and also sort the waste and use it differently. So as we talk now, the whole place is green, it's been cleaned, and the murals are still standing. So that's like the power of art. Sometimes you don't have to tell people, don't do this, don't litter here. Just use art to provoke people and communicate some of these ideas. Next.
Why I have to keep opening these up? Okay.
Sorry. So yeah, same when you look at here, like our outreach programs, we've really like tried to make some ideas look so simple. Like even a layman, you don't have to go in art school to do this kind. It's more of like DIY, do it yourself. So here we've tried to create a number of eco clubs in schools around Uganda, where we train young people to really create responsible citizens who care about the environment and teach them about waste sorting, separation, and reuse. So this is one of the eco club. They made a bin from plastic bottle, and they made more, like they would sort the plastic waste, the non-biodegradable waste, and also use the biodegradable waste for urban gardening and backyard gardening. So, but also in class, so in one of the curriculum design we did on one page, we were showing a small course like how do you recycle a bottle and make a bin, how can you recycle a bottle and make a backyard gardening. So these ideas are being shared to different schools in a soft copy, whereby they can also replicate them in other different communities. Another slide.
Again, oh my goodness.
Okay. So yeah, when this is actually what happens in most of the drainage systems here in Uganda, and also in some parts of the Africa I've visited, like I call it overconsumption. Like it happens even in global south and north as well. Like we buy a lot sometimes things that we don't need. We have a habit of consuming, not thinking about the end result. For example, if I buy a water bottle, after drinking it, I don't take time to think about where it will end up to. So in most slums in Uganda and Kampala mostly, you find they are overpopulated and there's a lot of waste that ends up disposing the drainage systems, and then that causes blockages and malaria through the mosquitoes that breed from there. So it's really a big challenge. And I feel like me as an artist, I have a role to really address, even if it means taking a photography and putting it out there. It will provoke someone to start thinking about, okay, what is happening around me? Then we go ahead and encourage people like, no, these kind of ideas can be done actually right from the household level. Sort the waste, try to reuse it creatively, add value on it, and it doesn't end up to the drainage system or to the landfill. In Uganda, we have every year, every day in Kampala itself, we dispose of around 1,500 tons of waste every day. So if that waste is not being handled right at the household level in a more creative way, it becomes a big problem like this. So I feel as artists, it's our role. It can be taking a picture, it can be addressing it creatively, always to really use our voice as artists to address some of these problems. There are 2 more slides, I think. So I call this the tree of life. It's an installation we did some time back in a landfill, which was there was nothing like a shed. So we used to have our meeting points where I would meet the community, and we found it challenging. Each time we go there, I would stand meet all day long. So we made like our iconic meeting point. We created a tree out of trash that we collected in that landfill, and put tires around to use them as chairs. So it was our meeting point. Then we put some fruits, if you look at them. So in my thinking, the fruits were representative of like calling it a tree of life. So you eat the fruit, you live forever. But the other way around, it's like these plastics, they end up in our value chain. It will either go through the drainage systems, it finds itself in the water sources like the lake and the rivers. Then when you're eating a fish tomorrow, the same plastic particles will be part of your value chain. So I feel like it's very important for artists to use art to really uh, do activism, but also create discussion. Sometimes you might not do much, but those small things we go on doing, they mean really a lot. So as Gus is getting us another slide, I will give a statement and say, like, what I really believe in is live and let others live, but don't live and let others live. Like, our being here today should create a conducive environment for the future generation. We are here today, we may not live more than 100 years, but there is life after us. So what we do now has an impact tomorrow when we are no more. So I feel it's everyone's responsibility, whether you're an artist or you're not an artist, to really do something in your own means and create change and create an environment that is conducive for the future generation. So that's that's all I will give for today, as I will continue later. Thank you.
Thank you, Reagan. That was awesome. Folks, please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and in a minute, when I'm finished with my little bit, we'll entertain those questions. Thank you, Reagan and Mia. So I've just come into the Sustainable Futures group in the last 3 years, doing some mentoring work with a few up-and-coming writers and scholars. And the power of working with Reagan and Mia in particular is only explainable by story. So I bumped into a person who said that they worked in sustainability in big business, and I said, "Oh, wow, great. What do you do?" And they spoke about putting mangrove trees in various communities to help clean the water. I said, "Oh, that's amazing. I really working on sustainable relationships with human beings. How do we go into various communities as an outside body, uh, being very aware of my body, how I'm imagined as a white male, and a lot of the ideas that are carried in this embodied self, and being very aware that I'm coming from the global north, from the United States, into spaces that are not mine. That's why I opened up with the respect for the land on which I'm in, that this is a very real thing to me. So I said, how do you understand going into these different spaces? And how are you working on creating an ethical, sustainable partnership with the people with whom you're working? And it was the oddest moment because the fellow had a bit of a breakdown. And he said, I'm just really tired of my job because I don't do that. I'm there to look at sustainability as an economic thing, how I can make money off of greening the planet. And I recall that this was something that when we first started this movement back in the 60s, 70s, it was probably going on in the 50s before my time. And Jerry, I see you there, and I'm so glad that you're here, my friend. You're a mentor and definitely someone who's been very relevant in this movement. We had to convince people that doing things right and caring and loving was economically feasible. So all of a sudden it became a thing. Yes, we're going to invest in green energy because I can make a dollar. In that, we keep missing something, I think. And that again is this idea of how do we create community? How do we collaborate? How do we exist with, as Reagan was saying, with others? So I'm going to share some slides and then we're going to actually do something to get up and explore this idea. So here's kind of my theoretical, whoa, that's a really cool slide that I put together. I'll just let that go. Here's my theoretical positionings on this. So I kind of draw on notions of culturally sustaining pedagogies, Lanson, Billings, and Gay's work on how we can create spaces that don't just respond to different cultures, saying, we're going to put things that are relevant to different cultures and kind of celebrate those cultures, which is a good thing in our curriculum and where we're looking at our pedagogies, and move to a space where we're working with people where they are, trying to understand their particular sense of truth, reality, and work with and become part of a collective consciousness, if you will, or a collective dialogue, honoring and enjoying those tensions and working in those tensions. So one of the other things that I do to think about how I'm entering into these spaces ethically, sustainably, with care and vulnerability, and still a sense of myself, is to understand anything as a moment of critical performativity, and I think about this as a critical performative pedagogy when I'm in spaces that I acknowledge as learning spaces. And as many of us know, as teachers, everything is a learning space. So I think of every moment as where we're in a space of becoming. I do identify as a queered individual, so I see the world as a complex space that's moving, and our identities are fluid and organic, and they emerge not necessarily in random ways, but in experienced ways. When I'm meeting another person, I'm reading you, you're reading me. And Jerry, thank you for your very beautiful understanding of critical literacy, because it has absolutely informed the way I understand what I'm talking about right now. So it's coming into this space going, I'm not naive about the notions of power in this moment. I know that I'm coming into a space with certain privileges and certain ways that people look at me because, again, of the embodied presence that I bring. So I have to be aware of that. I have to be vulnerable. I have to be willing to put my foot in my mouth every now and then have my friends with love and care take it out. So it's that notion of a critical performative pedagogy. These moments are places where I'm learning with you, from you, in each other in a moment that's, again, emergent, and really paying attention to those ideas of power and how they navigate themselves. So how do the arts fit into this? Well, for me, it's a way to begin to look at the complexities of narratives that are in the room. How are people making sense? How are they performing these identities? What sign systems are they using? Again, this beautiful notion of a critical literacy, multiple literacies, multimodalities, all enter into how I'm understanding what the arts are doing in any one particular moment. So anytime I engage with a group, I'm reading the multiplicity of sign systems. The arts for me aren't necessarily the way, the most way. It is a way. It's a sign system. It's a modality. It's another way that we communicate. And each one of our arts and our artistic ways of being are connected to our very specific cultural identities and our environments in which we grew up in. So my music is different from your music, and it each says something beautiful about ourselves. And that's why I do the arts in a multiplicity of ways and spaces. So all of that's kind of the play up to this. I'm going to invite you now, and it's it's a total invitation. You don't have to do it. Some of us will be here to be representations and things for you to look at. But I invite some of you to open up your windows and let us see you, because I'd like to play a quick game with you. I have like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, but I'd like to just give it a try so we can experience this. There's a lot of talking about doing things, and I'm not a great fan of that. A lot of my research and dissertation work with people is how do you perform your research. So again, those of you who are willing to kind of just open your window and join me for a second, if it's just me and Mia, we'll do it.
Gus, I think there's a technical glitch. I
Oh
think
yeah, is it?
you
Are we
have to make the
frozen?
participants panelists, I think, if you want to allow
Yeah.
them to turn on their
How do I
video.
do that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. If folks in the audience would click this raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, I'll promote
Thank
you
you,
so you can
boss.
turn your video on.
Yeah, I got to stop doing things in the spur of the moment. I could have prepped that in that half hour, eh? Um, but again, it's that idea of just having this moment to experience some art, some embodied art, arting, meaning making. Hey, Natalie, it's nice to see you. Thank you for coming in. So it's just going to be me, you, and Mia, perhaps. Anybody else going to join us?
Jerome is on the way.
Okay, Jerome.
I am in the office in a cubicle, so I apologize if I remain muted.
Okay. All right, we'll just do it with the four of us then, just so you can get the idea. This is like an experience, and art is an experience. For me, it's a communal experience. And Jerry, it's really nice to see you, and I hope you pop your face in there. So this is called the Impossible Game. It was established by Auguste Boal, and the basic idea is that we're just going to count to three. Okay, so let's just practice counting to three now. Audio would be great if you can do it. So on the count of two, let's all count to three together. You ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I can't hear anybody. So I guess, it's a little awkward. If you could just open your mic. There you go. Thank you. Jerry, open your mic. You got this, man. I believe in you. Can you turn your mic on? Yeah. All right, Jerry. Thanks, brother. All right, so here we go. We're going to try it again. You ready? We're just counting to three and go. 1,
1, 2,
2, 3.
3.
All right, let's do that one more time. 1,
1,
2,
1,
3.
2,
Okay, the
3.
impossible game. Now, when I go 1, everybody else is going to say 2, and then I say 3. Okay, let's try that. 1,
2,
3. Fantastic. Now, here's the sequence. I'm going to say 1, you'll say 2, I'll say 3, you say 1, I say 2, you say 3. Got it? And Natalie, thank you so much for using your fingers. That's awesome. Brilliant, brilliant thinking to play. So let's give that a shot. Here we go. 1,
2,
3,
1,
1,
2.
3.
Brilliant. All right. The basis of this game, and I'm going to move on because we need to have time for questions, is that we're engaging, we're using our bodies, we're using our voices, we're using our entire selves in the moment, in the space, to create a collective consciousness, if you will, an exchange of ideas, an exchange of energies. And that's just one way that I use the arts in order to go back to this notion of a culturally sustaining pedagogy, looking at this as a critical performative pedagogy, and again, using the arts as that way that we communicate. And again, I just want to, uplift and applaud Jerry Harsty for his work. And it needs to be said and it needs to be done in arts and literacy and helping us understand more completely notions of multimodality. So here we go for questions. Let's see. Am I seeing questions? I see one. I don't see any questions. So I guess we'll just open it up to the floor. If anyone would like to ask a question, please do. Or have a comment, a shared experience about how the arts are working.
I'm just going to ask a question because, as a pedagogist, while we wait for questions to come, And I think, I'm sure as panelists too, you have lots of questions. Jerry, our esteemed professor, is also here. I'm sure he has lots of questions as well. I think if you move, my question is, as I'm listening to you, as we move from context to context, Reagan is in Uganda, Mia is in Glasgow, and you are in the US. How does context impact in terms of your sustainable pedagogy through arts? What are the changes that you see as you move from context to context and as you engage with each other?
Isn't that the beauty of it? I mean, that's what I'm loving so much and learning and growing is that it's the context are the people are the context. We're informed by our spaces inform us. And that's what I'm learning, Farida. It's just the beauty of I'm learning how to be vulnerable in those spaces. Um, it's kind of funky, being in the Midwest for 20 years and not getting out so much. As we say, I hang out in Puerto Rico sometimes. I've been jamming over there in Glasgow for a little while, but I'm not like worldly like you for example, or I see, my roommates in the room, Vivek, or I see Ezra, you're in there. I'm calling you in because I see you in the chat. I mean, in the room. And Reagan's been all over the world, and Mia's been all over the world. So I'm gonna. That's my take. I'd love to hear other people's. How does the context affect what we do? That's a great. Thank you, Farida. Anybody else want to talk about context?
I can offer a response, Farida. I think that one of the driving forces, I would say, of my work, usually in places that I don't belong, usually outside of my own places of origin, is to create spaces where people can understand differences and work across differences, because it's very tempting to sit in a binary in the current global context. But let's say over the past 70 years, it's very easy to sit in a binary of global north and south, or right and wrong, and good and bad. And one inclination is is the sort of white savior, let's go save the world because we've got some good ideas. And another is to just leave well alone and stay away. You cause the problem, don't come and interfere, continue to interfere. And what we have found in the network is that with arts practice, we can move a little bit towards understanding how different our contexts are and how different our starting positions are, and what we share and what we don't. And it's really very profound what we share, but also what we don't. And I don't think our regular practices of either research or teaching or diplomacy are sufficient to really overcome those kind of gaps in understanding. So, a very brief example is a very, very early project or practice of mine many years ago with the network, with people like Regan, bringing together groups of people from arts and sciences and development and farming from 4 or 5 different disparate locations. We did a strategy that comes from probably image theatre, really, where we were creating embodied responses to an English word. And an embodied response to the word future was something that we did. And to recognize, after we'd written successful grant applications and traveled across the world and conceived lots of exciting things that looked good to a funder, to realize that when I think of the word future, I think of 7 generations. But actually, for half of the room, future is the next harvest, was 3 months in the future, was the future that comes to mind, because that's the reality that they are working with. Those are the primary needs, those are the contexts. So we talk about futures, and yet we imagine and we actualize very, very different understandings of those words. And we wouldn't have come to that through grant writing together. We came to it very quickly through a playful strategy together. So that's just a little example of how important art has become to overcome the limitations of the English language, which still predominates most of our collaborations. Regan, do you want to add anything?
Maybe I can go after Gus now.
Okay.
Sorry, Reagan. I spoke over you. My apologies. You said you didn't want to say anything?
No, I wanted to go after you. I wanted to.
Me, I'm done. I was just saying Farida was talking. I didn't know if you were trying to be heard, Farida, but your mute was on.
Reagan, if you want to add anything to the conversation about the impact of context. And I think at this point in time, too, I'd like to invite everybody else to post their questions on the Q&A panel, if you wish. Reagan.
Yes.
Has context impacted in terms of the way you move as well between all the different contexts in Africa and elsewhere? Has context impacted your lenses as an artist in terms of looking, in terms of critical understanding and pedagogy? How has that impacted your work?
Thank you for that question. So to me, what has really been interesting is the process. Like most of the work that I create, I find myself not creating it alone and not owning any of the work. So the fact that you're working with, for example, someone who is collecting the plastic or metal, then getting it to your studio, then someone else who is cleaning it, then like working with a welder, putting all these things together. So you find at the end of the day, it's more than personal work. It's like a collective where you get people together and you all do something and everyone is proud of it. But also when you do like public art installations as well, the more you engage the communities, the more they own the work than like me, an artist making a piece of art and putting it there. But when they are collaboratively engaged in the process, they feel like they are part and parcel of the work. So to me, I feel more in that lane. It creates more an impact than just as an artist coming trying to solve the community's problems. So I make sure whatever art I create, the people around me are part of it. Let it be students, let it be the community members. So it's a collective. So in that process, you don't only create an art piece, but you share different cultures, you share the experience together. You find that the student gets knowledge to learn from the community gets to learn from the university students. So it's really that merge is very strong. Like as I keep on working with different projects, I've found that really standing out in my work. And I really appreciate the fact that at the end of the day, everyone has a contribution towards the installation made or an art piece made.
Wonderful, thank you. Allow me to pull up a question from our colleague Vivek for any one of you, the panelists, to respond to. Thanks for the conversation, Vivek says. I love the collaborative nature of the work you are doing, working across many regions, practices, and disciplines. I'm curious how you navigate this and what challenges and possibilities emerge. Gus, Mia, or Reagan?
So key challenges are really connected to the previous question. People, it's very, very hard to work collaboratively, and it's hardest of all for academics, and it's hardest of all for those who have grown and become taken professions that have rewarded individualistic ideas of success and career. The sort of work that we're trying to do is work that has to be collective and that is driven by the success of the together rather than the success of an individual. And that makes this kind of work quite challenging to do in partnership with organizations like large international universities, businesses, even international NGOs. We are so Sustainable Futures is a social enterprise purposefully to create a kind of gray space, a gray area for people from all sorts of different sectors to come and try to forge work that isn't individualistic and isn't geared towards the bottom line kind of typical criteria for success. But that requires a lot of unlearning for people, a lot of difficult reflective work to put others in front of your own. to put the needs of a community in front of the needs of a funder or a university or a CV. And it's easy to say, but actually in practice, when it comes down to it, and everybody's very busy and stretched and strained by both professional but also political circumstances, that collective endeavor, and I speak, Regan and Gus will speak differently. I speak as one of the directors of the global network. That collective endeavor is one of the hardest things we find. We have a beautiful family of people who love each other, but it's against the norm to work together in ethical partnership. And so whenever we feel comfortable in that space, we know that we're slipping into old-fashioned scenarios. We know that it's really, really easy just to go back to business as normal. And if we're not struggling, it's usually because we've fallen into some kind of business as normal structure of a project. So that, I could talk about it a lot longer, but I'll just, in response to your question, I would say looking at a collective practice, ethical partnerships, as opposed to business as usual, is one of the biggest challenges we face daily.
Thank you. I mean, there's a question from Professor Jerry Harsty. Have you done work with corporations, getting businesses to be more responsible to the environment?
Yeah, we have. Over the years, I would say the private sector and businesses is probably we've had the least to do with them in comparison to government, local and national government level, and local and national NGO sector. But we have purposefully engaged, and some of our hubs actually have active partnerships with business, and some of our hubs are becoming businesses, and the network is now a business. But in terms of corporations, we have had a little bit of success at appealing to sort of social responsibility categories, and we have sort of been, I think, sort of flirting or skirting around trying to be sort of Robin Hoodish about, the green agenda, the sustainability, the sort of cynical sustainability agenda that Gus mentioned in his story, about trying to utilize and capitalize on that for the purposes and our objectives, our mission of the network. But I don't think I can say with any honesty that we haven't had success at sort of transforming that sector. I do think that we're very realistic, and we know that we're not going to beat capitalism or anything like that. But what we're trying to do is create, I just want to check the language that you're using again with this. Oh, I can't see it. With the sector, whether you said private or business. What did you say?
Corporations.
Businesses. Corporations and businesses. So I think what we're trying to do proactively is look at what counts as economy and currency, and we're looking at modeling an ethical, sustainable business model in our own hubs. So the network is a series of hubs. Some of those hubs are autonomous businesses, and the overall umbrella network is a business. And we're working with economists as well as sustainability experts and artists and things like that, trying to find ways to create an international network that is run like an ethical social enterprise. And in some places in the world in our network, that's quite exciting, what's happening in those business contexts. But we're sort of trying to rewrite the script of business in the same way that we're trying to rewrite what it means to be an academic or what it means to be an NGO, if you like. And the social enterprise is the closest kind of blurry model that we could use that will give us the flexibility to try these different ways of working. But we haven't chipped away at capitalism yet. I mean, we shouted it, but I don't think we've affected it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I found is that even the recycling efforts go away if somebody isn't making money from what gets recycled. And I don't know, just trying to, I got to thinking that probably we have to do away with capitalism if we're going to have any real success at a sustainable future.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put you on the spot, Reagan, because you had that really amazing experience working with a community on their infrastructure, building carts, figuring out expenses, how to bring them together, and then, the artistic creation was absolutely a part of that, you know, repurposing, recycling. Could you just talk a little bit about that? Because that's kind of like imagining, and I don't want to use the words of capitalism, but I'm gonna reinvesting the way we're looking at how money is changed hands. I don't know. Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So
Appreciate it.
there are like two elements in the kind of work that we do. One of them is creating awareness, where we really like do outreach programs in communities, in schools, and everywhere. But also there is an element of value, adding value on waste and making income or improving livelihood. So me personally, I've been earning through that, like getting scrap and really adding value, making art that is sold and also exhibited in galleries. But also we've partnered with organizations that are really interested in commercializing these kind of innovations, whereby we give them training and they, like, for example, getting plastics and building structures using plastics. Then there are other organizations here in Uganda. They have gone ahead and ventured more in making plastic tiles and they are selling them. We've also partnered with the city council to really see that we are training people not only to recycle, but to really see that they're trying to add value on these materials or waste and make an income out of them. And it's very common in the city, like Professor Jerome is saying. It's very hard to encourage someone to just upcycle things when they are not making a living. So everyone, mostly in the slums, like these people are struggling to make a living. So you have to bring in that element of income generative ideas or activities that are generating income. I remember when Mia visited and the team, our community some time back, she found there like different income generative ventures like backyard gardening using recycled materials, chicken coop and others. So in all the trainings we give people and the work we do, value addition is one of them, but also channeling it down on how best you can earn income out of it. But the long goal is creating a waste-free environment, but in a more innovative way.
So we have a few minutes. We have about 3 minutes in the webinar. I think this is when we push it back to the panelists. Allow me to kind of suggest a way for us to conclude this webinar, which is for the panelists to respond to a question that is burning in their own minds in terms that were not asked in this discussion that you want to bring forth. But Reagan, as you do that, if I could put you also, Reagan? Okay.
He's probably still listening. He's still listening, Farida. He's probably just
okay. So in terms of just pulling this conclusion to this webinar, Reagan, one of the questions I'd like for you to respond to is the difference between art as as instrumentation and art as art. How do you make that distinction in terms of the work that you're doing? And so I think with that, I would like for each of the panelists to kind of respond to their questions that are most prominent in their minds as they conduct in this webinar that were not asked. So Reagan, if you could start by responding to that question.
Can I ask the question, please?
So the difference between art as art and art as an instrument for a particular purpose, for instance.
That's a good one. Nice. Okay, so of course, art can be described in different contexts. Like there is what you call art when you look at an artifact or something that is there and you interpret it in your own context. But art as an instrument, I feel it's I would call it a creative way to make things happen in different ways. So to me, I call everyone an artist, right? Starting right from your wardrobe. Before you came to this webinar, there's a way how you felt like putting on or designing up to come to the event. So it starts right from our dressing rooms, then it goes right from the way how we do things and how we like the way how we envision things, like from how they are and how we make them a difference. So I feel as an artist, I would bring it more in an idea like being an artist. It's like being able to use or control your mind to really make a difference. Because I feel everyone is creative in their own way, but also we differ in different ways, and also on the levels of exposure and experience as well. So I've learned that when I'm teaching students, you find you're teaching first year students and third year students, but you give them an opportunity to open up and have an open mind to really try out something without judging or having expectation, but also thinking about the end result and trying to critique it, whereby you look at what is successful and what is not successful, and then you learn from the lessons when you are working towards that. So I really don't have like a straight answer of what art is, but I feel you can use it to make a difference.
Last few words from Mia and Gus.
Very quickly, in response to your question, Farida, I would say I don't see there being much of a difference. Art is always doing something. That's what I would say.
And I'll, yeah, thank you so much, Farida, for everything and everybody for being here. So, Fernando Gastambide always asks why the arts don't do anything. And it's a big conversation about notion of needing to place value onto the arts and that separation, you know, like this is aesthetic, this is not aesthetic. As soon as we get there, there's this tension and notions of colonialism and imposition. This is high art, this is low art. When is it craft? When is it art? When is it utilitarian? When is it not? Um, and um, and Gloria, last name's not here, uh, made the statement, all art is political. So to go with Mia, art is always doing something. So the value is, for me, the interesting question. Why do we need to value it? You know, does music teach math? Does visual arts teach literacy? You know, how do we understand? I think this goes back to your idea is what is the essence of art? And you know, Reagan, it begins when we get up in the morning and put on our costumes to come to the show. So again, thank you so much, Frida. You know, that's me. I gotta say.
Thank you, wonderful panelists, and thank you everyone who've set aside time to attend this webinar. And thank you everyone for pushing our thinking and in terms of the way we see the world and in terms of the ways we understand the world. Thank you everyone for your time and for your interest and for your insight. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.